ReleaseWire helps businesses connect with interested journalists and bloggers. Check out the link in the description to save 25% on your first press release.
Admiral, radar shows that we have liberals approaching at 3 o'clock, and libertarians at 9 o'clock, and conservatives at 6 o'clock. They're coming from every angle, every viewpoint. Oh, it's Political Radar with your hosts, Rhonda and Elliot.
Hey, all you political junkies. Welcome to Political Radar, the best 30 minutes of unscripted and uncensored political talk you will hear all day. Episode 53, we have Alderman Joe Moore with us. Hello.
Joe.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Congratulations.
You're on video.
Awesome.
Look at the camera. Smile. Hi, fans.
Hey, fans.
So where do we want to start? We can start anywhere. Where should we start with this? City of Green Bay. What's going on? Is there something going on?
Tough episode
Anything?
today. I don't know. It's been pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Holiday seasons are coming.
So tell us about the dinosaurs.
Yeah. Well, that was a pretty fun soundbite, and it's,
It got good mileage.
It did.
For sure.
It really did. I've seen some of the videos have like close to 1,000 views on them.
Wow.
But, nobody likes it more than my 6-year-old daughter. Sometimes greets me at the house.
Thank God for Wendy Coriel. Coriel, is that how you say her name?
Yeah.
She makes those videos.
She's fun.
The Green Bay sausage.
She's fun. That's a good page.
So I don't know who the actual dinosaurs, but there may or may not have been some dinosaurs engaged in an epic battle last night, 2 nights ago.
2 nights ago. And are you referring to Green Bay's mayor and Guy Zima?
I don't use age discriminatory terms like dinosaur.
Right. But and I'll clarify that too, is that the whole comment about dinosaurs wasn't even directed at any particular person. It's all about a way of thinking.
The idea, yeah.
It's the way of thinking that, developers are beating themselves up hands over fist to come to Green Bay and do business, which is absolutely wrong. And what it is the city is trying to beat up everybody around us that's competing for the developers. And anybody that thinks these guys just are going to walk in the door and offer all this private money to do business here with our tax rate as high as it is and with other incentives and benefits that our neighboring communities have to offer, Ashwaubenon, Bellevue, Hobart, it's just wrong. It's an extinct way of thinking. And that's where the whole dinosaur thing came from.
Well, we don't really have to worry about developers and investors probably seeking us out at this point, do we? I mean, there's a lot of toxic drama happening in the city.
Well, I'd like to think that the good outweighs that, but the toxicity is certainly prevalent right now, getting a lot more attention than any of the good things are.
As it should. So, okay, can we just get this out of the way? So, our mayor had his sentencing hearing a few days ago. He was fined $4,000 and assigned to 40 hours of community service for multiple counts of, he pled down from felony charges on campaign finance. I think as well as, there were other things in the complaint, doing campaign work on city staff, was doing campaign work on, when they were clocked in to do city work and other things as well. So I think he got a sweet deal and walked away with a pretty lenient sentence. And I know you're going to say something, what, Elliot?
No. Well,
how do you feel about that? What do you think about that sentence, Elliot?
So, I'm of two minds on it because, I don't think that the infractions really were as horrendous as described. That said,
what does that mean? Because people that are listening may not know what you're referring to.
So the campaign finance problem. So it was misreporting and then potentially covering it up. And I don't know how much proof
potentially.
Allegedly. I guess it was proven.
He
now.
admitted to
I guess
writing.
It was proven
yeah,
now.
he admitted it.
Okay. So the cover up was the big problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what the sentence should be for that, but I took 5 hours of community service just for getting an election bet wrong. So, 40 in that regard doesn't sound very high.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it should be. So I don't know how we decide that. And I think that I read somebody said something on Facebook that the court intended to probably let city council take care of anything harsher or to let the voters decide. I don't know what the thinking was there. Do you have thoughts on that?
Well, it's not the judge's decision to expect somebody else to handle the sentence.
That's fair.
So I think that's kind of a ridiculous statement that was made, that was in the judge's mindset. I think, the prosecutor made a recommendation. The judge went with the full recommendation from the prosecutor and ignored the defense's recommendation altogether. It's our legal court system.
Well, and the defense was basically, how about nothing?
Right. Yeah. And it could have been a long, drawn out, costly process. The mayor did cooperate, and I appreciate that. And look, outside of City Hall, he's a friend of mine. Our families know each other. We go to each other's events when things are going on. He's calling them mistakes, and that discernment alarm is just spinning. It's like, pencil whipping paperwork is one thing, and maybe.
But I did not fully
someone's name or making
understand the campaign.
So you have a problem
law.
with that because you're saying he's been
I have
in
an
office.
Absolute problem with that quote. I did not fully understand the campaign finance law. I don't believe that for 1 second.
Yeah, and I don't know how you could.
Okay, so here's another thing, though. I got into it a little bit with Phil Jennerjan on Facebook about the taking pictures of your ballot when you vote thing.
Sure.
Because it's technically against the law, but everybody does it.
Right.
So how much of that was in play? Were some of these infractions things that, but everybody does it, and you want to go back to a donor and say, you got to rewrite your $50 check?
Everybody does it. Who else does that? Who else takes
Well, I have a feeling that we're going to find some of that out.
Well, and you know what? At this point, why not do it? Because you're not going to get in trouble for it. The precedent that has been set is not good in general on campaign finance. And if you can't balance your campaign finance paperwork in the right way, what does that say about your ability to, handle a city budget in the proper way? For me, it's beyond that. It's for me, it's more about, we always think about, because we all know each other, anyone that literally goes out and votes in city elections, county elections, it's not a big number. It's not impressive.
We probably all know each other.
Well, no, but the people that are really tuned in, we do. So then there's this weird, bizarre, creepy sense of it's almost like a sorority / fraternity where we're all like, you fucked up, but it's okay because I like you, right? So that's not actually okay in the grand scheme of things, because we have a big picture to look at. We have a city that is really, we've come a long way, and but yet we have a lot to do. And we have a neighbor, Ashwaubenon, who is really, kicking it with gas right now, okay? So we need to do what we need to do to make sure that we look as not dysfunctional as possible and as inviting. And, so if you do want to come here and spend money and live here and all the things that we need to be viable as a city, we have to start taking ourselves seriously. And I really don't understand how, and again, I'm obviously not the mayor, but what do you think about this, Joe? So you're a mayor and this is out there. It doesn't get, it's pretty ugly. You owned it, and you admitted it. So you know what? This is how I'm going to be done. I'm going to say, I did a lot of great things, and I own up to this mistake. And you know what? I'm just going to gracefully bow out instead of being forced out. Because what are you going to remember? You're going to remember the fact that you were forced out, not the fact that you were actually, you owned what you did and you were gracious with it.
Sure, and I don't know. I guess I would rather see, if something goes forward, I'd rather see it done as a recall should the mayor not step down. I'd rather see it done as a recall so that, 100,000 citizens can weigh in on it rather than 12 people. And some of the 12 have had their opinions made up from day one. Mm-hmm. And quite honestly, if it comes down to an ethics complaint and it goes through the due process of our ethics ordinance, it's going to come to a point where there's a judiciary hearing, and anybody that formed an opinion before the judge did the sentencing isn't going to be allowed to vote. And if I was the mayor's attorney, I would come forward and say, look, you guys filed the charges. Your opinion was already made up. You've already made public statements saying the mayor should step down. You already formed an opinion of guilt before the judge did. You shouldn't be able to vote.
And do you believe that these people know this? Do you think they're aware of it?
I think now it is. I think you heard Alderman Zima say that he would not file the complaint because he wants to participate. But I don't know if it's too late or not, and
seems too late after the other night.
See, and that's the thing is,
I think it's way too late
people
for that.
that already formed their opinions, and I don't know that anybody on the council will bring it forward, because I think all 12 of us want to participate in that discussion. should it come forward in the form of a complaint. But there's plenty of, citizens that could file the complaint and, other people that could bring it forward and more than
So
likely
you're
will.
saying a recall is more likely?
I guess I would prefer to see it that way and just let the citizens choose what
but
they want. I mean, look at the city of Green Bay. Look, okay, it's a $100 million budget and it's 900 employees plus. So with pulling the mayor out, it's going to be the responsibility of the council to select a person that can handle a $100 million budget and 900 plus employees. And I mean, I don't know. I mean, look, Tom Duane doesn't have to step into that role. The council can select anybody.
Okay,
Be a
so
city
that's an
employee,
interesting
it can
point.
be a resident, it could be, whoever.
That's
So,
an interesting point, because just the scuttlebutt that I hear from people, and then I pretty much, clients and people that I deal with on a daily basis, that's all they want to talk about. So what they're talking about is their fear is that whoever steps in is actually going to be worse. Or there will be somebody that doesn't take, care of what's already been done. But I guess that's fine. But is that how you go through your life in general? I mean, if someone, let's say you're in a relationship, someone cheats on you, are you going to stay with this person because you're afraid of there's nothing else out there that's better for you?
I think that's a lot different. There aren't. I mean, most people don't have a long list of budgetary requirements of looking for somebody to date.
No, as they should, but I'm sorry, that's not true. They should. But the premise of that is, are you going to hang on to something that you feel a sense of comfort with because you're afraid of what can happen? But really what we need to be looking at is what happened. And what happens when this is looked at from, like, I think I was trying to make a point, but we lost it, possibly, outside of ourselves, right? People looking at us from the outside. What do they think? I don't think they think real. I mean, we're kind of a joke to people right now.
I think to an extent. People see the publicity, they see that part of it. However, when people are coming to the city and they have a project, they're not, coming to the council members. They're going to our staff, and our staff is, quite honestly, our staff is dynamite. And it sticks around through all of this. I give them a lot of credit for going through it. And I think that the one thing that the mayor has done is he's made good hires. He's brought the right department heads in. So these are the folks that a lot of these guys are dealing with. They're dealing with finance directors, or dealing with the economic development director. The mayor can champion a project and he can try to whip up votes for a project, but he's not the guy that's giving it the affirmative or the negative, as far as that's going to happen. And I think developers understand that as well.
But the reality is that's actually, your statement is true and not true at the same time, because there are people that have left. And I mean, there have been a lot of people that have left in the last 2 years. No?
We've had turnover. We've had quite a bit of turnover, but I don't know if you put that all on the mayor, if you put that on the pressure the council puts on them.
But I mean, not even like assigning blame for that. Because when you're a person outside of that little bubble we live in, you don't care. You just know this is the way it is.
Right.
And that's what you look at.
Yep.
So that's a liability.
I agree.
And so this situation that we have, and with Zima, who just can't keep it in his pants. He's got to get that mayor off he can't stand himself right now. He's just like,
I don't know what it is you just said.
No, he has no self-control. He has no self-control when it comes to just wanting to get this done. You can see it in him. He's just rejoicing. He's doing little tap dances.
Well, he's dedicated a lot of his life to this.
Okay, so I have I want to hear what you guys think about this. So many people, and I'm sure you hear this, why does he keep getting reelected? Zima, right? Why does he keep getting, you hear it everywhere, you read it. Okay, it's entirely possible, and just out of curiosity, I looked up today that District 9 actually, during the last mayor election, Schmidt lost to Tom Duane. Mayor was 649 to 793. So is it possible they have a common denominator, right? The fact is that Schmidt's there, then the people that want to vote in Zima really are, it's just a vote against Schmidt. Because they know if Zima's in there, he can mess with them. It's entirely possible that as long as the mayor is there, Zima will be there.
I've heard a lot of people say that Guy balances
Right.
the administration.
Right. And the people that come out and vote for him know that.
I think there's a lot of people like us that put a lot of thought into our votes. I think most people do not. So I think you're over analyzing that a little bit.
Look,
It's
historically,
interesting, though. It's a very interesting. It's an interesting number. To look at that and think about the fact that, and maybe it's vice versa as well, right?
Yeah.
most of the time when you see changeover on the council, it's open seats. I mean, we've had only a couple of incumbents get beat in the last few years.
Tim Duane.
Alderman Tim Duane, and Alderman Boyce. Beyond that, what's been in the last 6 years, there are seats that have been open. And I know 6 years ago, there was quite a turnover. I think 7 new faces came on 5 years ago, I should say.
So what do you think people could do? I mean, we're only about a year-ish, a year and a half out of the next time there's an election.
70 weeks and
oh, that's right. You have it on a ticker. I forgot.
It's my screensaver.
So what do you think people could do to, I mean, there's got to be something going through your mind. What do you think could change that? Because when, again, 20% of people go to vote and they don't finish the ballot, that's not a good sign. And what's happening now is not going to help that at all.
No, and incumbents have the advantage because we basically spend our entire term campaigning. If we're not returning phone calls, if we're not returning emails, and look, I understand sometimes you can't help people, but if you ignore them, then they're not going to vote for you. But even if you give them the wrong answer, they'll still support you because you paid attention to their concern. You're able to help them out. And so when you got an incumbent, the longer they're there, the easier it is to keep them there because they're going to talk to you and you have a complete unknown that's running against you. In Alderman Zimma's case, he's got 40 years worth of returning phone calls, talking to people. I mean, he's shoveled driveways, taken people's garbage to the curb for them.
He doesn't return emails.
Well,
or phone calls.
It might depend on who emails and phone calls.
That's true.
I was in this district. Just saying.
So
he doesn't call me back, but anyway.
But the history is there, the name recognition is there. I mean, that's a long term. I think he was the second longest consecutive incumbent.
Second longest?
Up until Alderman Warner beat him a few years ago.
And so another point on that. So did Jim Warner, did he attach himself to the mayor? Because I think people that typically attach themselves in some form to the mayor when they run don't really have good success stories.
Sure. I don't think that was it. I think the problem that Alderman Warner had was that he was really focused on the health and human services. He was really focused on the vets. I think he ran for the wrong office. I think if he would have run for the county, he would have been in the right position to have more effect on those types of items.
But I guess when he ran, though, I'm asking you when he ran initially, and he won. Okay. He beat Zimma because it was the only time he's actually lost in how many years. Was he just kind of independent, or was he somehow tied with the mayor?
I don't think he was at that time.
Because I think that to me is something I think that is...
No, he wasn't. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
He came to my door.
That's what I'm saying.
I remember very clearly he was... I would have voted for almost anybody. But
was he not... he wasn't anti-Zimma.
Well, I mean, he was running against...
That's not the same thing, though.
But it's not entirely. But he was a veteran. He was looking for veteran issues, and I knew that the impact for that wasn't large. But
he was a man.
Well, I actually voted for the woman last time too. So.
Yeah, but you're in a different case, though. Okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is, I'm not convinced that in that district it's a good idea. If you're going to run, if there's anyone out there that's going to run, you definitely want to set yourself, aside from the mayor, and you want to set yourself aside from really anything that maybe could be, you could be lumped into with him.
Well,
because
they
I
should
think
be their own person.
Right, but I think there's a special liability with that connection.
It's every district is really different. I mean, there's a different makeup all throughout the city. And I think you really just need to sell yourself and focus on your own issues. You can't really rely on anybody else. You can't go out and attack the other candidate for things he has or hasn't done, or she has or hasn't done. But, at the same time, you need to say, this is why you need to vote for me. This is where I feel on these issues that are going on in our department right now, or in our district right now. And you can, at that point, say, look, this has been an issue for 5 years. What has the last guy done? And you can bring those things up.
And especially
but
over
you
there,
really need to be a candidate for yourself. I mean, these are small. These are 9,000 people. This isn't 150,000 people you're going out to represent. And you got 9,000 people, of which, look, I'm in a district that has a lot of disinterest. And in the first campaign I ran was a primary, and we had 180 total voters in the primary. We had 308 voters in the general.
Wow.
In an entire district.
That's really low.
So you go out and knock on 3,000 doors talking to people, and 10% of them show up and vote. It's difficult.
I think part of it is they don't really understand what city council does, and the fact that you are making some major decisions for their everyday lives, and you need them to understand why they need to care about that in the first place.
Right. You know,
Right.
people will ask, they'll say, look, what's the president done for me lately? What's the state senator done for me lately? But then, okay, who's making sure my neighbor's mowing their lawn and not putting their garbage out early? Who's making sure the streets are plowed? Who replaced that sidewalk slab? And those are things that really affect people's lives. And those are where, you know, alders can really step up and make some difference for their
I think that
the community.
strategic behavioral health is going to be open soon.
Yes.
I think that's actually, if you're going to run for office, I think if you were a person that championed and you know, supported that development, that would be actually something you could run on. Because I feel like that's, you know, you hear about that all the time, that, you know, the mental health facilities and the availability of even getting that care in this area it's really low. And I think that that's something that you could actually use that. And maybe, you know, because mental health is an issue that I think we all are affected by. And that would be something that any potential candidate out there next time around, you know, if you were a person that supported that, or you're a candidate that supported that, that would be something good to look at. Because there were plenty of people that did not on the council.
Right. And yeah, the mental health is a huge issue because, I mean, if you're looking at kids in schools and coming out and you look at our homelessness issues that we have, you know, there's a lot of employers. There's a low employment rate. People are hiring all over the place. Everywhere you go, you see these now hiring signs. And it's not just because it's seasonal Christmas employment. I mean, they're everywhere. But why aren't people able to get jobs? Why are we dealing with this homelessness issue? And it's, you know, okay, maybe there's some qualification issues, but I don't know. There's a lot of support, I think, at a national level that doesn't filter down to the local communities to be able to have these resources that we
And it was
need.
so great that you supported that development.
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, it's 5 years of assistance from the city to bring this thing in. And I can tell you that in my own family, you know, we've had a family member that needed counseling and was told they'd be on a waiting list for 9 months to get the counseling they needed, until he actually had made an attempt, you know, that was steered towards suicide. And when it got to that point, they were like, oh, we have an opening.
Wow.
But we were told there'd be a 9-month wait for him, and it had to get to that point before he'd be able to see somebody.
And so now we're going to have a facility that can help with that issue.
It opens resources. It brings more people in. You know, having the on-site, I think having the on-site, yes, there's counselors that are all over, but look, these counselors are backed up. They really are. But I mean, look, it made a huge difference. The kid was 13, he's 18 now, and you know, he's having some struggles getting started in life, but he's made it this extra 5-6 years. And I think the counseling's helped a lot because he's had somebody that he could go and talk to.
And when is that open? When is that going to be open?
You know, it was actually just in the paper. I'm not sure.
And I know it's
I don't read
probably
it.
within the next, I think it's sometime in the spring.
January, February. It's
Really?
actually-
It is
It's early,
before that?
yeah.
Okay.
It's early next
And
year.
I found it interesting that our council president voted to that facility, and that vote was important to me for personal reasons
Right.
in my life. So I remember a lot about it. The council president, Tom DeWayne, voted to give them the land, but voted against their proposal to build the hospital. What was that? And what is
Look,
that?
I think that if you make a vote, you need to stand behind it and you need to give a reason why. And I don't know if anybody ever asked him.
I don't think anybody ever asked him. Why would you ever? Here's land. You're not allowed to build on it, but what you want to build, but you can have the land.
Looking for a little better deal, a little less stiff assistance. When, you know, the folks from Bellin Hospital are coming forward, making their arguments about why it shouldn't be there. I think some people saw it as just having less competition. Other people, you know, I didn't buy the story that it wasn't needed. So, you know, I supported it.
And
So can
it's
we hit
factual.
on?
We can absolutely hit on whatever you want.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
Packer tax decision came down.
What part?
Well, so $1 million, right?
Right.
It was $1 million. So are there things on there that you were happy came down the way they did? Are there things that you wish were a little different? What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I mean, I wouldn't have minded amending them a little bit and changing them up a little bit. When it came to the finance committee, we had made a suggestion and forwarded to the council. The council didn't like it. So they sent it back to us again to come up with another plan. And that second plan was to create the subcommittee, to review them, to use the matrix that Alderman Galvin had, essentially a point system saying how many jobs will this create, what's the economic impact projected to be, you know, how is this going to better the community? And it was basically based out on points. Then the subcommittee sat down, they used the matrix, they ran through. These were what they selected. One of the items got lost in a spam filter in the city's email.
Oh, wow.
So when it came to finance for us to vote on it, there was one item that had not been reviewed. And in full fairness, we said, look, I think that item should be reviewed. The finance committee sent it back to the subcommittee on a 4-0 vote and said, look, review it and, give us your thoughts and then represent it at the next finance meeting. And they did, but when I went back the second time, they had made a bunch of changes again and moved some money from here to there and jostled a bunch of money around. So when it came before the finance committee, we were like, look, we had this original option, and since that one item was not included, do we want to just go with that, or do we want to go with all these edits that were made? And the decision was just to go, send it to the council and say, look, these are your two options. Option 1, option 2, which one do you prefer? Option 2 was preferred, and then it got modified again. So it really kind of eliminated a lot of the work that the subcommittee had done. Ultimately, I think they're good projects. There's other projects I would have liked to have seen. Putting the money, and I know, Elliot, the website has been a big thing for you, at $150,000. Yeah. But look, if it was $150,000 could have gone toward maybe the wildlife sanctuary expansion, which actually will generate, anywhere from $38,000 to $54,000 a year in annual revenue.
Right.
$50,000 to them would be paid off in a year or two. It would be done, and it would be a revenue source. That would have been a good project, I think. The thought was that infrastructure money could be used toward these park projects, and that's why they were all pulled by the subcommittee and not even presented.
And so what was this discussion with bathrooms?
The Red Smith School District, not the school, Red Smith Neighborhood Association, had submitted an application to get some money to put restrooms at Red Smith Park. Right now, they just have the porta potties. It's a newer subdivision, newer park, and they're pretty far down the list as far as getting new bathrooms out there. When the $1 million was pulled out of the infrastructure fund to balance our budget, when that was done, there was a worry by that Alderperson Dorff, that money may not be available now in the infrastructure fund to do that project. So she had asked the committee to change it, and it was 3-1 vote. They changed it, and they added, the $50,000 into the fund for Red Smith.
Okay, your hesitation for that.
But
hesitation for that, though.
Bathrooms aren't economic development. They don't create
not.
Any jobs. There's,
right.
So it was pulled again.
And so money was pulled. You referenced that 2 seconds ago, to be put into, to be taken out and given back
right.
to. It's confusing. They think they're actually getting a check. They're not. It's offsetting a tax increase, right?
Right. That's all it is.
And
so
it's going to property owners
right.
to offset the tax increase.
So anybody that has multiple properties in the city is really, really benefiting from that $1 million that was pulled from the stadium tax. And anybody who doesn't pay a tax bill in the form of a tax bill, but pays it through their rent or in any other way.
And what was your vote on that? What did you vote on that?
Oh, look, we gave $2.8 million to our public works director. We asked him, we said, if you had this money, what would you do with it? He said, I would fix lift stations, help take care of some of these flooding problems and sewer problems that we have. He said, I would fix railroad crossings. I'm sure you drive over Walnut right in front of you here all the time.
That's a bad one.
And he said, I would use the remaining funds to repair streets. So we pulled $1 million out of it to balance the budget, which starts off 2017 in $1 million hole. And now another proposal was just made at this last council meeting to pull another $1 million out of it for lights at Whitney Park, bathroom out at Red Smith, $250,000 I believe was requested. So we're trying to take all this money out of Public Works. And here we are with Public Works we've had the money a year, not one linear foot of street has been done, not one railroad crossing has been done, not one lift station's been done.
So that's
start off in a hole. I was pissed, quite honestly.
On the whole website thing, I know I went on and on about that, but that's just representative of here's a chunk of money that doesn't really need to be spent, and maybe at all, but certainly not at that level.
Right.
And not a linear foot of our streets have been fixed.
Look, and it was a tie-breaking vote by the mayor, and the mayor just 2 weeks earlier had said, we've gotten as efficient as we can get.
Yeah.
He proposed a tax raise of 15 cents. We added 2 cents to that 15. We had it at $9.02 instead of $9, which he proposed.
So he voted to basically give the money
and he voted to send the $1 million back.
And did you hear anybody really ever ask him why?
No, I think more people just so express their frustration in it and have our opinions of why, but
why do you think why would he do that?
Why would you start off next year $1 million in the hole, and then your excuse being, we'll just have to get more efficient after 2 weeks earlier saying we've gotten as efficient as we can? You want to start seeing department heads walk. Anybody that sticks through this, starting off 2017 in $1 million hole, and then when taxes come next year and we're looking at 25 to 30 cents right before an election year.
Yeah, exactly. So
it'll be fun.
I didn't want to politicize this, but I said, look, you people are going to vote for this, and we are going to be in a huge hole next year, and it's right before an election year when people are turning in their nomination papers as candidates. Every one of those guys on this council put themselves in a hole. And whether it was a 6-6, it was a 6-6 tie, and the council broke the vote, or the mayor broke the vote to put $1 million out of stadium tax excess and give it to the property owners, the 30,000 property owners.
And you're referencing an economic piece, okay? And that's
Right.
you understand that, and then there are plenty of people that do. But
Right.
then we have the other side of the coin, where there are people out there that all they know is their streets are even. You can lay down in some of the potholes on Roosevelt. So So that's what they know. So when election
Absolutely.
time comes, it's more likely they're going to look at that piece of it when they cast their vote versus the bonding, the debt. I mean, they're not. That's so over so many people's heads.
Right.
At the end of the day, they know that their streets still and their storm sewers are still in bad shape.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
why would you do that?
The excuse is that, and the mayor has said it, the federal government is going to come through for us. Didn't matter who got elected. Federal government is going to come through with grant money for the municipalities. Look, how long does it take federal government to get something done?
Mm-hmm.
That I don't know.
Well,
You're
and
putting an awful lot
and
of
not to
trust
mention-
in some place that has very little trust.
And as a consensus, as a whole, I don't think the majority of people trust the federal government or
Right.
even want to have an expectation from them to begin with. So that's a very unusual argument.
Anything we get from the federal government is going to go to the state. The state's going to allocate it to us after pulling 80% out for administrative, work. And then that's going to get filtered down to the rest of the municipalities. And in what way? Who knows? Anything we can possibly get, I don't care if we put $50 billion aside for it. Anything we get is gravy on top of what we have to bond for every year anyway.
Yeah.
This is my opinion.
Well, but there might also be the moral hazard of if we let our stuff go to hell, then maybe we're going to be able to demonstrate the greater need. So maybe we get a bigger percent of that, and which is just wrong
Right.
to me. That's terrible.
Yeah. I mean, we've already had water mains explode, and we've seen the result of that and the cost of that. We've got streets that are just terrible. There's no reason that, look, I don't care if you're a property owner or a renter. There's no reason you should have to get your tires changed every 2 years for driving on Green Bay streets.
Just had to get my tires changed on Saturday, so that's very painful to me.
I've done it far too many years.
So any last words
10 years.
on anything you want to talk about? You have the floor.
Yeah, I mean, so are there any next steps on the mayor thing? I think that's the thing that people are most immediately interested about.
Sure. So like I said, I mean, there's nothing on the floor now. So somebody will need to file an ethics complaint. They'll have to go through the proper procedure, proper policy. So if somebody wants to do that, they will. And, it'll go to the ethics board. They'll make a recommendation. It'll come to the council. Council side judiciary hearing. At the judiciary hearing, actually prior to the judiciary hearing, we will decide whether we want to have oral or written complaints filed on each side. We'll get those.
So how do they
complaints.
really do that? If a citizen wanted to do that, would they email you, or they have to email the committee somehow? How does that
No,
work?
they have to stop down at the city clerk's office and actually get a policy on how to do it, and then that would be presented back to the
It's
city
not a
clerk's
hard
office.
thing.
Right. The legal department will look it over and say, look, is there a reasonable case here? And then
Anytime you say that
at
the answer is
point,
to
put
walk
on a-
down to City Hall during business hours, that just makes me want to say dinosaurs.
Right, I know, right?
Yeah, but if you want that
Well,
to
you
happen,
could
you're
always
going to make a point of
You
it.
could always email the city clerk, or you should be able. Look, people should be able to email their alderman, and their alderperson should be able to have the answers, or get them the right resources, or even have the city clerk send them the paperwork so that they can give it to them.
And he will survive a recall.
Think so?
Yeah, I know so. I don't think so. I know so. People
I
don't
think-
like recall. I personally don't like recall. I'm not a recall fan. I feel like that's not necessarily something that, I think it's either it's been proven it doesn't actually work out for anyone but the person that's in office at the time. So if you are a persons out there and you think that, you want to see a change happen, I do not believe that would be the right process.
Costs a lot of money.
It costs a lot of
At
money.
budget time, we tried to put some money into the city clerk's office. She could have a contingency specifically for elections, and
Yep.
But we
That
could
was
get
shot
Arnold
down 3 times,
Schwarzenegger
so.
as our mayor. That would be awesome.
What?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
He's the only one that I know of that won a recall election.
Yeah.
In California. they had.
Okay. I don't know. I just feel like,
That wasn't that much of a stretch. I didn't deserve an eye roll over that.
but the people out there, and there are people out there that are working this right now. We all know this. Everyone.
Oh, it's been
we all
going
know
on
this.
for months.
Right,
and
we
months.
know this, so it's out
well
there.
before any of this had come forward.
Exactly.
Look, there's
So-
a lot of background work being done by a lot of potential candidates that
Exactly.
are just rubbing their fingers together. They just can't wait.
But they need to
see what
simmer
happens.
down, and they need to realize that
Sure.
if you want to win, and that's your goal,
Yeah.
there are better ways to do it. And part of it is don't let Zima be the face of that movement. It's not a good thing. I feel like you'll have so many people that it will be a Zima against Schmidt thing, and they're going to line up with who every time?
Well, and I'll tell you, I said there's a lot of candidates in the background that are rubbing their fingers together, just kind of waiting to see what happens and throw their hat in the ring and jump into this. But it isn't even going to matter if it becomes a vote against the mayor or for the mayor without that candidate being able to focus on any kind of top. Look, I agree. If Guy is the guy in the back pushing the buttons and making all the commentary, people will vote against him. And it's just, and that's unfortunate. I think it would be nice if he just back off and let the process take its place. But neither one, look, Mayor Schmidt and Guy Zima, both of these guys have been around a long time. They get how everything works, but neither one of them has a whole lot of...
you got to be really savvy.
Yeah,
You really do. You need to step back and think about it in a very strategic way.
Look, they both shoot from the hip. They speak first, worry about consequence later. And, that's not a good place to be in. But this has to be a good, qualified candidate running for mayor versus the existing mayor, if that's what it comes to. And it needs to come down to policy between the mayor and this new candidate. It can't be, I think, the recall, if it happens, will be because of something that the mayor did and has already been admitted to and already gone through court and already been proven. So
would this
that's
candidate
why the
have
recall would take place. But the vote still needs to be on the issues. There will be trust
And
involved,
9 of you would have to vote.
Not as far as a recall.
For that.
Recall is recall. That's 25% of the signatures.
No,
in the
I'm
last
just
election,
talking
but
about, and again, but I'm just gonna say it again. But
if it comes to an ethics thing,
waste
and
your
it comes
time on a
down to the
recall,
council.
and your mayor is back in. He's still there. That's what I think.
Well, and the thing, too, is that if the council were to remove the mayor, it would only be until the next spring election. So it wouldn't be to fulfill the full term. Likely, nothing is going to happen here until after the April election is my guess, because there's a process to it. So it would be likely that if we removed him and we selected someone to replace him, it would only be for that next year.
And that's it. And then they would still have to run in an election after that.
Right. And then there would be a general election.
Okay.
So if anybody'd like to get in touch with you to get comments, tell you you're crazy, how would they do that?
Absolutely. So I've got Twitter. It's at D6 Joe Moore. And my city email, district6@greenbaywi.gov. And then I also give my cell number, 328-7885. I got a home phone too, but call my cell.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
That wraps up Political Radar episode number 53. Holy smokes. If you'd like to get in touch with me, I'm Elliot on Twitter. I'm Elliot C on Facebook. Also, you should join the Political Radar community. And one last thing, you should tell your friends about this. I was talking to my friend Mark, who is involved in politics. He had no idea about the podcast. Please tell your friends. So how would you like people to get in touch with you?
At Sitnick,
or whatever the hell you want to say. I don't know what that look was for.
At Sitnick on Twitter. I'm on Facebook as well. That's it. That's all I want to say.
All right, we're out.
Thanks for listening to Political Radar. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcast app. To stay up to date, visit politicalradar.com or connect with us on Facebook or Twitter.